Hello, everyone. We'll call this town council meeting to order. If we could rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call.
Councilor Angelica Stetson, Councilor Giannoni, Mayor Kaczynski,
Here.
Deputy Mayor Luddy,
Here.
Councilor Pagliaro,
Here.
Councilor Panessa,
Here.
Councilor Rosa.
Here.
Great. Thank you. So we have our audience of citizens. I think we have, somebody signed in, I think one,
Peter Daddio.
yes, Peter Giadio. Hi, how are you?
Good,
Welcome.
thank you.
The
Sure.
mic is yours for a few minutes.
The podium?
Yes. Name and address. Please, name and address if you would, Peter. Yeah, I think you know the drill from other meetings, right?
Thank you, town councilors and Mr. Mayor. Appreciate. Mr. Mayor asked me to come and speak to the council because we've been working on a project over the last couple years with the town, well, maybe a year and a half. And however, it really has been longer than that now that I think about it, because we started really with the project with your Wetlands Commission and with your Zoning Commission by securing some fill permits. Our property's at 404 Berlin Turnpike, 1,000 feet down from the corner of where the CVS is and the other side of the Home Depot, heading southbound. On the right-hand side, in front of your sewer pumping station. So we're on both sides of that property. And we approached the town early on for, utilities and for wetlands and for filling. And we've received 3 separate fill permits from the town, the zoning department, under the old regime before Mark was here. And then did the same with the wetlands. We redelineated the wetlands and got the approvals from the Wetlands Commission that we have the right wetlands delineation, and we've also went to the DEEP for through the wetlands request for endangered species, and we've identified that there were none, and we have our building pad, which I'll share with you in a minute. During that process, which was actually been several years, we actually acquired the property eight years ago, I think. We marketed the property to the marketplace for retail development, which the Berlin Turnpike seems to have a lot of. However, the market has changed in not just Berlin, in the United States of America. The malls are redefining themselves. The Macy's, G Fox's, Sears, Kmart are closing, those big box retailers, those drivers that created the mall, because those anchor kind of uses have changed. And what have they been replaced with? Well, there are a lot of different things. Some municipal buildings, some residential buildings, and they become neighborhoods, even some of them. And so when actually Mark came on board, and a little bit, Chris Edge, I don't know if he's here, but we were a matter of one of the RFPs that you folks produced for the downtown. We were requested to bid. We didn't, but at first it was a very small project. Couldn't figure out how to make that work. But now the project looks quite attractive. I see that what you're doing for the train station, the project's a little bit larger and it's more financeable. And so we looked at the zone, the overlay zone that the town wrote, and it was attractive because it was a mixed use kind of overlay. So we had meetings with Mark and with Chris, and we did a survey of everything on the Berlin Turnpike, from the Home Depot down to Meriden, to take a look at every single property. What would work on the Berlin Turnpike to spear economic growth, to spear commercial development, and how we could apply it to our lot. And we worked on that same kind of overlay zone, that a little different because it's the Berlin Turnpike instead of a train station. And we were fortunate that the town planner, through their wisdom, created an overlay zone that worked out for us. And the zoning commission approved it a few months ago. Through that process, we met and got the approval of the Economic Development Commission, the Housing Commission. I see Housing Commission people are here. The CROG, Connecticut Economic Development. And we've got a lot of support for this new kind of, not new in the United States of America, not new in some of the municipalities in Greater Hartford area, but new in Berlin, with a mixed use, some commercial, some residential. And so what we have here, can I turn this a little bit so the council can see?
Sure, please.
Can't see.
And, I'm sorry, and we haven't gone through site plan approval yet.
It's really hard to see from where I'm sitting.
There we go. Is that better?
Yes.
So we haven't gone through site plan approval yet, and we're getting ready for our application now. So this is preliminary. This is just in conceptual. We've got a lot of work to do to make it to conform with what the zoning regulation requires. But keeping in mind the zoning regulations and the new zone, which is an overlay, we've applied all that to this conceptual drawing. And I'll just take a minute. So this is our residential neighborhood. And there's 200 apartments. There's 50% of covered parking here, but also there's amenities on site that are different than you might find in some communities. Of course, this is the Mattabasset River that runs along here, and we have parks along the Mattabasset River that is not only open to our community, but also open to the town for public use. We've got extra parking over here for that purpose. We've got walking trails, and we'll have some, I heard you mention the land trust, we'll have some land trust opportunity as well, because we're going to conserve some land. We have 30 acres, but we're building on about 10. So we're being very conscientious of wildlife and those kinds of things, and for some land conservation. But also, we've got our commercial up front, which is going to be, we think, a service to the neighborhood. A proposed hotel, if we can find the right hotel to come in, a full service, some more retail, which we perceive to be service orientated, things that the neighborhood will use, and Dunkin' Donuts, you need them everywhere, and there Dunkin' Donuts are a fueling station kind of thing, and we've had interest from them right along. It's just that small use is not enough of a motor to create this intersection and create what we really need to get the project, financeable and forward thinking to build something like this. The look, and the zoning commission, believe me, they'll modify this to make it the way they want. But just as a concept, the different textures and materials, masonry, cedar impressions, the things that make it look like a big house rather than institutional, orientated towards the New England kind of capture of style. Parking underneath with different things in there that you won't find, with a dog wash and a place for for bike storage and extra storage, kinds of things that are not in some of the residential communities that they used to build. Today there's a different idea of where these neighborhoods want to come from. The millennial people want to be move in, move out, electric, everything on the phone, exercise and those types of things. They want to have a full service neighborhood. And so we'll provide that with one building as the center post office and the community center with the, pool and those kind of amenities, meeting rooms. And so this is the kind of neighborhood that we had in mind, and with the commercial up in front. And the mayor was nice enough to say, it would be good to come and talk to the town council, because of course there's a part of the town council that it's going to be important too when it comes to financing our project, a pilot program or some sort of agreement, so that we have a long-term expectation of what real estate taxes are going to be. Not that you need any special accommodation, except that certainty, because when you go to finance, that's the whole thing that changed the real estate tax structure in the middle of the construction or in the middle of the project, makes it difficult to secure your financing. So that's what we've been up to. We've been pleased with the town because they've been very cooperative. They've been very supportive on really the mayor and the old, I guess maybe the the manager, did he just leave or is about to leave, but he was supportive as well. So, so that's my 5 minutes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. We appreciate that. Appreciate you sharing that information, and I know it's been kind of a long project. Mark worked on it hard. Chris Edge, Economic Development, Planning and Zoning, and so, yeah, I thought it was good to update the council on where you're at, and it's good to see some, economic development on the Turnpike in a spot that's been empty for years and years and years. So it's great that we're bringing some of that. So we appreciate you looking at Berlin and working with us. So.
Great. Well, thank you very much for having me, and you'll see us at the zoning meetings, and I'm sure we'll be back here as we progress to talk about that pilot.
Exactly what parcel is this? I missed that part.
Sure. I'm sorry. This is 404 Berlin Turnpike, which is. Do you know where your pumping station is? The town has a pumping station.
Blue Lobster.
Oh,
Right,
okay.
that chunk.
So so you take you head south,
Yep.
right at the CVS, okay, right past the Blue Lobster. I have 2 billboards there.
Okay, yeah,
That's
thank
that
you.
parcel right there.
Yep.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Peter. Okay, we're still in our audience of citizens, so anyone else wishes to speak? Now is, Fred. Yeah, I was, thanks, Fred. Putting you to work while you're standing up, it's all right?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Frederick Morley, 319 New Britain Road. I just wanted to inform the council of an incident that happened yesterday. As I pulled off Worthington Ridge, took a right onto the Mill Street 372 going towards East Berlin to bring my grandmother to dialysis. I was tailing a Mr. Dave Sear. He was brake checking me. I got into the left-hand turn lane and he started yelling obscenities at me out of his window. I did respond, and as I made it to Bethany Covenant Church in East Berlin, Mr. Sear pulled up behind me at the red light, got out of his car, and started screaming obscenities again at me. I didn't respond as I turned left onto Berlin Street, going again to pick my grandmother up to go to dialysis. A coffee was thrown at the back of my car while Mr. Sear was tailing me. This is no behavior for any public official to be portraying in public. Mr. Sear has a history, and unfortunately, a police report was filed, and I am looking to press charges against Mr. Sear. Thank you.
Thank you. It's unfortunate to hear. Thank you for bringing it to our attention. Anyone else? Yes, sir. Art?
Art Powers, 857 Worthington Ridge. It's not political, so I thought you'd be pleased to hear that. I'm here today to
Okay,
speak.
if it is art, it's all right. We're used to it. It's all right.
You don't pay any attention to me anyway.
I guess we do.
I'm
Elder
only-
statesman.
And I'm only kidding, of course. I'm here to ask the town to take some action on a matter that I think is very important. As you know, we've had problems with the electric companies, not with the electric companies, but problems that the electrical companies have had with trees growing up into the wires. And there's been a lot of removal of trees by the power company through a company named Plum. I don't know whether that's the proper pronunciation. But on Worthington Ridge, which is the historic district of the town, I think it's very important that we take into consideration the removal of the stumps there. It looks like Stumpville over there. There have been so many trees that have come down. And I'm not just speaking up for the historic district, and I'm also speaking for the rest of the town where a lot of trees have come down or taken down by the power company, and they leave the stumps. And the power company does not pay for the removal of the stumps. And these are the areas between the sidewalk and the road, which is town property. So I heard from a lot of people on Worthington Ridge, which is the historic district, very upset over the number of stumps that are there and that all of these beautiful trees came down. Many of them they're dead or dying, and I understand that it was appropriate to remove them. A lot of other trees were trimmed, and this street does not look as it has been in the past. In the 1938 hurricane, the trees on Worthington Ridge, they were so thick there, the trees all up and down the street, that in a sunny day you couldn't see the shadow on the road. That's true. It was just a beautiful street with trees everywhere, and just a lovely place, and it still is a lovely street. But the problem is now that we have stumps all over the place. And as I said, it's not just on Worthington Ridge, it's in other areas, so I'm not here just to speak for the historic district. But it's ironically, the trees that came down recently were ones that were planted after the 38 hurricane. At that time, the town removed all the stumps. That's what I've been told. And as a result of we had a lot of beautiful trees growing up there over the last 81 years. So recently, when we had the problems with the wires coming down and some of the trees had died, as I said, we have a lot of stumps. I'd say on the Worthington Ridge alone in the district, about 15 or 20 big stumps. Some of them are like that and like that. And I understand that it costs between $300 and $500 to remove a stump. And it just isn't fair to ask the property owners to remove those stumps. They're on town property and on, as I said before, between the sidewalk and the street. So what I'm here today to ask for is that the council, and I've talked to the Board of Finance on it, that the council and Finance Board pay to have these stumps removed. I would say there are close to 20 stumps on the Worthington Ridge area, and there's probably another 20 or so in town, anywhere where the wires were being jeopardized as a result of the trees growing into them. So what I'm asking is a two-step proposition, that the town appropriate at this time $10,000. It may be a 1 to 3 year project. I don't know. That's what we're going to have to find out. But to start off with a $10,000 appropriation, which would result in many of those stumps removed. And if we find that there are several other stumps, we're not looking to break the town on it. I would say a 1 to 3 year project to get these stumps removed. The second step would be, when the stumps are removed, that we have an arborist check around the town to see what we could replace, where we could replace trees, especially where the power lines are. There are certainly trees, a lot of flowering trees perhaps, but ones that do not grow high and would not interfere with the power lines. So that would be the second step, but I think you have to take one step at a time, and I would appreciate it if you would take into consideration the appropriation to grind down the stumps, especially on the Worthington Ridge. We're in the historic district, and then looking over the rest of the town to see where other stumps are there because of the trees being growing into the power lines. So it's as I said, it's not a 1 year project necessarily. It could be a 1 to 3 year project. So I would appreciate your consideration.
Thank you, Art. Absolutely. Thanks.
We put that on the agenda.
Yeah, we'll talk to Public Works, and we'll start with Public Works, and Mike will talk about it, and we'll put it maybe on our next agenda. Let you maybe go out and survey them and see what you think. You would? Thank you. Still audience of citizens? Yes, sir.
Sam Lamaglio, 78 Hickory Hill Road. As chairman of the Board of Finance, I was asked to come here by the Board of Finance to make a couple of proposals. Since we're a co-equal branch of government, we can't spend the money unless you guys ask us to spend it, and you can't spend the money until we guys give you guys permission. So this is what we want. We obviously, out of that 248, we have a contingency surplus of $248,000. And so out of that $248,000, which has to be spent by the end of the month, or it goes back into fund balance, we want to, obviously, I've been talking to Arthur, we'll be talking to the board members, and we had an informal discussion last week. We definitely will support the $10,000 for the stumps. We think that's important. Historical district, there's a stump at Farmington Avenue in the business district that the trees came down last summer. That's an eyesore. So we would support the $10,000. We also heard that the council wants us to do the bleachers for $97,000. We would support that as long as the town council supports our $10,000. We also heard that the council or the mayor or somebody that said that we'll put back the $25,000 for the kitchen for the floor at the senior center. We would support that. We also heard that perhaps there's a possibility that the golf course can get their lightning rod. We would support that. $15,000 for the upbeat bus. We would support that. As far as the $100,000 for this classroom for the school, the cost sharing, Jerry Paradise, our vice chair, is negotiating a deal where the Board of Education perhaps is going to fund that. So that'll be off the table right now. So we don't have to fund that $100,000. We're negotiating with the Board of Ed currently. We think they have enough funds to pay for the whole thing since the ESS is going to be funded through the budget. And so we felt that instead of returning the money, they could finance it themselves. So we have a tentative yes by them. They're just running some numbers. But we think, according to Jerry, who's been an auditor for this town for 30 years, Jerry says they can do it. So if Jerry says they can do it, we believe they can do it. But in the process, this is the big ticket item. We felt we put the police cruisers in the budget. It was two. Two was funded by the town council. We strongly felt that we needed 4 police cruisers because Simon's explained to us what's going on. These police cruisers have high mileage, and we haven't replaced police cruisers in the past few years. Yes, we've given 1 or 2, but we haven't followed the 10-year plan, and we haven't followed Simon's advice. Now, when you replace the police cruisers, what it does is it gets put into the town fleet. Now, those cars in the town fleet have over 100,000 miles. So those town cars might break down. So indirectly, you're going to be getting 4 cars because you're going to replace the 2 cars in the police, and you're going to replace 2 cars to the police cars. You're going to replace 2 cars in the fleet. So it's a win-win for the town. So we would support that if the council puts that in. But the caveat is that we won't support anything unless we get the stumps and the police cruisers. That's what I was told by the Board of Finance. So if you guys can't do the appropriation today, we'll cancel our meeting next week, and we'll reschedule and have a special meeting, hopefully towards the end of the month. And if we don't hear anything, then we won't have a meeting, and then we'll just let the money go into the general fund. That's our position. I hate to. That's the message I was told to give to the council people, that this is what we want. We're willing to support anything you want within what I just said, but we like to have some support on the police cruisers and the stumps too. So it'll be a win-win for the town, and it won't cost anybody any money. The taxes won't go up because it's extra money, and everybody wins.
So should that be on our next agenda? In 2 weeks?
We can discuss it and put it on there.
We could put it on
I think we
today.
have some items to send to you today, right?
You could put the cruisers on today too. You could add that to the agenda if you wish. We could wrap this up all next week.
Okay.
And it's up to you. Okay? Thank you.
And why is he
Sam?
Thank you.
the last minute?
Okay, still audience of citizens? Anything else? Yes, sir.
O'Brien, Vineyard Drive. The first one was stumps, but I guess we already covered the stumps and everything. I know across from the sicko, that stump sticks out like a sore thumb, so I was going to mention that and a couple others. So the stump issue was already covered. Berlin Turnpike. You want to build up the Berlin Turnpike. Now, if you go up and down the Berlin Turnpike, pretty nice buildings. But right next to the trailer park on the pike, there's a white building. It's got all graffiti, and Mark should take note of this. It's got all graffiti on it. Somebody should approach the owner on that, because who wants to, build a nice building, millions of dollars on Berlin Turnpike with a building that has graffiti? So it's right next to the trailer park, Mark. That's one. Right next to Lion and Billiards, Farmington Avenue. I mentioned it to you a couple of years ago, Mark, that gray house. The grass is probably about 2-3 feet high. All the brush is overgrown on both sides of the house. The back, you can't even see the garage that used to be there. Something should be done. Even if the town has to go in, clean up the property, build the owner. Again, you want to build up Farmington Avenue, you got a dump. Another one that's turning into another blighted property is corner of Norton Road and Chamberlain Highway. Right on the corner.
Yeah.
Grass is probably only 5/4 of 3 feet.
Aren't they
Right.
working on
Yeah,
that one?
I think we're working on that one already.
Okay, good.
Somebody mowed the right away already.
Oh, okay, okay.
Okay, now here's the catchy one, which shouldn't be catchy at all. Back last year, a couple years ago, whatever it was, there'd be no signs on the mobile gas station. No signs on state property. No signs on basically town property. What I want to do is I want to get your permission tonight, not a political sign, supporting our police, fire, and EMS. The sign has been stagnant at my house. Thank you to our police department, fire department, EMS. I want permission to be able to put that at mobile, asking Paul Simeone if it's okay. Even though he doesn't own it, it's state property. Now, you've had fundraiser signs, banners on there for the last month and a half, 2 months, car shows. You have landscaping signs that you're supposed to police. You never policed it. Mark never policed it. I had to take my signs off of the rails by the underpass across from Dairy Queen. But yet, and tell me if I'm incorrect, right next to Sage Park, just before you pull into Sage Park, northbound, who owns that property?
Some of it's the town,
Yeah.
some of it's private business.
Okay. Some of it's the town. From what I understand, that used to be the old Mark Dotson.
I think so.
Yeah,
I think so, yeah.
Okay. Now I know the town does own it. Well, how come there's a school bus that's been parked there with a big banner, drivers wanted? I couldn't even put political signs on any, but here's a town-owned property at the corner of Mill Street, Worthington Ridge. Town-owned property. Beer tasting banners on there. Now, I didn't say something. I like charity. And everything. When it comes to charity, let them put their signs up. We've had it for 40 years that I've lived in this town. Everything. All I'm doing is asking your permission to put one sign that's thanking our police department, fire department, and EMS, our first responders. It's going to have to be either a yes or a no. And if it's a no, I want all the signs around town taken down.
I agree with you.
Think about it.
Yeah, okay, thank you for your comments. Extortion going on tonight, it's interesting. Okay, this is still the audience of citizens, so anyone else wish to speak? Hearing none, go ahead and close the audience of citizens and move on to our consent agenda. We have 7 topics on the consent agenda, which most of them are accepting donations, accepting a suspense list from the revenue collector, donation from Stop and Shop, donation for the Veterans Committee. So we've all reviewed them before. Take a motion on these.
Okay, I'll make a motion to accept the consent agenda in front of us tonight.
Second.
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, so moved. Okay, so,
We gotta get down now, right?
I don't know for this, did we for this one? So we have just a quick public hearing.
No, it's not
I don't, no, it's not a town meeting, right, it's just a public hearing, so. So I will call our, public hearing to order at 7:34. And the purpose of the public hearing, conduct a hearing on Tuesday, June 4th at 7 p.m. in council chambers located in Berlin Town Hall, 240 Kensington Road, Berlin, Connecticut, discuss the 2019 Connecticut Neighborhood Assistance Act tax credit program and to solicit citizen input. So, I don't think anyone's here from the Land Trust, are they?
No, see anybody?
No, okay. So, Mark, you wanna
Yeah,
read-
I can
just
summarize.
read part of this, just so this is the public comment period for this particular public hearing. So we'll just read a little bit about what it's about and,
Sure.
Anyone else comment?
The Connecticut Neighborhood Assistance Act tax credit program provides a tax credit to business firms that make cash investments in qualifying community programs conducted by tax-exempt or municipal agencies. The community programs must be approved by both the municipality and by the Department of Revenue Services. Tax credit equals 100% of the cash invested is available to business firms that invest in energy conservation projects. Tax-exempt entities desiring to obtain benefits under the NAA must complete an application and submit it to the municipality overseeing the implementation of the proposal. The overseeing municipality then completes their portion of the application and submits it to the Department of Revenue Services on or before July 1st of each year. Prior to submitting the application, the municipalities have to hold a public hearing on all program applications, and then town council would have to vote on the programs. This year, the Junior Achievement of Southwest New England and the Berlin Land Trust wish to submit proposals for the 2019 program. The Junior Achievement is looking to expand programming in Berlin to reach an additional 200 students with curriculum aimed at teaching the basics of financial literacy, work readiness, and entrepreneurship to prepare them to succeed in the global economy. The Berlin Land Trust is seeking opportunities to protect open space in Berlin and surrounding towns by purchasing parcels in strategic locations in order to improve ecological and recreational benefits. They need to replenish the acquisition fund for Berlin that is apparently low and will limit abilities for the trust to purchase parcels as they become available.
okay, thanks. So that's the purpose of this. Are there any public comments? Hearing none, I'll go ahead and close that part of the meeting, and now we have town council comments. Any comments from the town?
Eric, I just want to know, is this something we should add to the agenda to approve this because there's a time constraint
If you
here?
wanted to afford them the most time to prepare the applications, if you add it to the agenda tonight, it'll just give them the assurance that they can proceed with their application.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Any other council comments? Hearing none, we'll close that, and I will go ahead and close the public hearing at 7:38. And we will move on to new business, but before we do that, I guess we're going to add a couple things to the agenda.
Yes, we have a new agenda item tonight. I'd like to make a motion to add it as number 13, the temporary salary for assistant town planner.
Second on that?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, so moved. I'm going to add this one on.
Yeah, and then I'll make a motion to, I just ruined my language here, to add in the acceptance of the 2019 Connecticut Neighborhood Assistance Act, the NAA and tax credit program as number 14.
Okay, thank you. Second on that?
I don't have any paperwork, but
Thank you. Any further comments on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
I mean, I approve it, aye.
All right, so on, what's that? Oh, yes, we got to add, I'm sorry. Got to add an executive session too.
Like a motion, I will make a motion to include an executive session for discussion of personnel matters, the interim town manager.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Thank you. Okay, thank you. On to new business. So we have a report from the Housing Authority. Mr. Bajorski, thank you for coming.
Joe Bajorski, 80 Butternut Lane, Chairman of the Housing Authority. Okay, so at the last meeting I was here, we described the low-income housing tax credit and the HUD 202 program, and we're going to investigate those and get back to you with a decision. The decision has been to move forward with the HUD 202 at this point in time. The application is due at the end of August, and we are moving in that direction.
That's great. So that's the program that we hope is going to be able to move the senior project forward.
It's a HUD financing program that's targeted towards elderly housing. So it's not going to be as restrictive as as the state project. That being said, the state is opening up a comment period on June 20th. They're having a public hearing with respect to low-income housing tax credits and the way they allocate those credits, the criteria they use. So I will be speaking at that public hearing, asking them to drop the negative impacts of age restriction and using the demographics that we have in our study to support our position. I don't know if that's going to do anything, but, you know.
Worth a shot.
If anybody has any connections to the governor's office, that might be a worthwhile call to place and ask for a, consideration that elderly projects not be penalized.
Because that's what changed, right? Under
Yes.
the last administration?
Yes, so basically they shifted their focus, I shouldn't say they shifted their focus, they prioritized family affordable housing. So any age restriction was penalized in the scoring scheme to obtain financing. So our age restriction would drop our point score by nine points, basically, in our scoring matrix, and make us ineligible for financing.
All right, so hopefully this new program, I know it's another government program, we know how that goes,
Yes.
but is there any ballpark time frame that you can even, not we're going to hold you to it, I know it's HUD, and I know HUD is HUD.
We are going to file an application at the end of August and
hope for the best.
For the best. Like I said, we are not foreclosing the low-income housing tax credit, but at this point, unless something changes on the state level, that's not going to be a winner for us. If something changes, then we'll move forward in that direction as well. That application is due in November. So, we're stalling that, but we're moving in the direction of the HUD program at this point in time. It's the most advantageous. That being said, their funding scheme is a little bit smaller than the low-income housing tax credit program would be. Our project is about $13 million. They're funding $5 million at the HUD level. So we'd have to raise either a little bit more money than we had initially planned through other sources, or we would phase the project over 2 phases. So we build, one building now and build a second building as funds became available down the road.
So you were always going to add some extra funding, right? Is that?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So this might just make a
Yeah,
little...
we're looking at, our initial scheme was basically, you're looking at 13 million. We're going to probably fund 10 million through the low-income housing tax credit, and the balance would be through either private funding or other funding aspects that are out there. So we're going to have to adjust that scheme and see how much we can raise over the $5 million.
Okay.
So I have a couple questions. Typically, when you're doing a grant, there is, within the grant, a time frame as to when you would be notified. Is that included? Have you seen those dates as to when notification?
I have not seen those dates, no.
Can you come back and share that with us?
Sure.
And is it an RFP or an actual grant application that you're doing and
Number one, it's not a grant, it's financing.
financing?
Yes,
Okay.
and this is through the HUD process,
Okay.
so it's an actual application.
And will you be doing it, or is the town doing it on your behalf?
No, the Housing Authority is doing it. We have a contractor that we've hired to assist us in that process.
Okay. And you'll keep us apprised when the grant is, or the funding
Oh, yes.
application goes in?
Yep.
Okay.
Anyone else? Questions? Well, I appreciate you coming, Joe, and
Not a
appreciate,
problem.
hopefully, finally get some financing and move this thing forward for the town and our seniors.
Hopefully.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Thanks. Okay. Number 2.
There.
Agenda item 2. Is already-
Sure. Agenda item 2, it's regarding a report from the Visiting Nurses Association.
Yes.
Well,
Welcome. Thanks for
thank
coming.
you. I'm Wendy Russo, the administrator for the Visiting Nurse Association.
Wendy,
Yes.
may I ask your indulgence, please, so that we can invite Fred Morley up with you for one moment?
Sure.
Thank you. And I should say Fred Morley's the chairman of the board of directors for the VNA at Berlin.
Wendy, I just wanted to present this proclamation from Governor Ned Lamont for Nurses Week. It's a little bit late to the Berlin VNA for all of your hard work and dedication that you put into the VNA.
Very nice. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right.
That's lovely. We will add that to our wall proudly. I'll
Great.
share it with the rest of the staff.
Thank you.
And we did celebrate Nurses Week and staff appreciation. So my understanding is we've had previous conversations about the goals for the VNA, what our main priorities are at this point. One of the conclusions we have made is that we need to increase and stabilize our census, and that we need to make preparations for some of the changes that are being implemented starting next year through CMS Medicare. So as far as census, I've been trying to keep everyone updated. Unfortunately, this was not the best week to talk about census because we've had a little bit of a dip, which is normal. We do see peaks and valleys in census, and it really depends on what's happening in the facilities, what's happening in the hospitals. Sometimes it's seasonal, sometimes it's just for whatever reason. We do reach out now, though, however, to find out, are the referrals we're missing, or are the facilities just on the low side? And that is one of the things that's happening or been happening over the past couple of months. We've set a goal for a foundation census of 80. Haven't quite gotten there. We've gotten up above 70, and we've slipped back, but we have seen above 70. So that's what we've been kind of shooting for. Excuse me. This past couple weeks, we've had a little dip into the low 60s, 58 when I looked at it. However, this week, it seems that our referrals have started to pick up again. It's only Tuesday. We've had 6 referrals already this week. A very comfortable goal would be, 10 referrals a week, and we would be in good standing. Some of the reasons, though, we have been really looking hard at some of the reasons for the changes in census, and there are a lot of things that we can and can't do. I mean, some of it's just beyond our control. However, we have maintained the rapport with our referral sources, checking to see, when overall in general referrals are low. We're also looking at, responding to patients who have told us that they have asked for us. Sometimes that water gets a little murky with other agencies. Sometimes facilities don't give patients a choice. So we're trying to follow up on those things and kind of have a working relationship with the referral sources themselves. And that has been, that seemed to have helped. We do reach out to them. Jennifer, our clinical manager, has a really good rapport with our referral sources. The other things that we've been doing about increasing and maintaining that census is we're physically marketing, which we really weren't doing before. And we're trying to get at least once a week, bringing some of our information out to referral sources in different areas. The mindset for a very long time has been that the Berlin VNA serves Berlin. And that is primarily, and that is the majority of our patients, and that's where our majority of our referrals go. We will always take our patients in Berlin. But we've expanded a little bit just so that we can maintain that census base. So we have gone out and physically done some marketing of our services. We do, as I said, Jennifer does some telephone marketing with referral sources when she speaks with them on the phone, just kind of asking, are things slow, or kind of getting a feel for the environment. And we've also started now doing some local community visits. Marlo has been very active in participating with that. We've gone to the rec center. We've gone to Marjorie Moore. We're going to the senior center, and there's about 6 or 8 more appointments that we have set up. We're actually going out, setting up a Wheel of Fortune game with some of the community, some of the people from the community that attend, giving them information about the VNA, and then doing a couple of puzzles with them that are based on VNA information. And we have little prizes, and they seem to love it. The response has been great. So at least it makes it a little more interesting than just one of us standing there and talking to them. And the other thing that we're, looking at, and it gets into kind of what the changes are going to be down the road for reimbursement, is we're really looking at our utilization of our services. So I think some of what has happened with our census has been just looking at our utilization and kind of making sure that we're very efficient on that. Excuse me. So we have discharged more patients recently that have been with us a long time and maybe needed other levels of care and that kind of thing. So we're actively involved, but there was a lot of, there's a lot of different angles to come at the census with. But I have a great deal of faith that we're going to get to that goal and we're going to be able to maintain that. And we're getting lots of positive feedback from the community. So again, as far as our census, the majority of our census is in Berlin, with a few patients in New Britain, Cromwell, Newington, and we're trying to keep an eye on our payer mix, and that has also been, it's primarily Medicare and managed Medicare, and then we do have some Medicaid and CCCI, very few commercial patients. Most of the commercial patients are managed Medicare and some private pay. I've been kind of referencing the implementation of a new reimbursement system coming in January, and I'm sure, as Karen can vouch for, it's very lengthy and complicated, but basically it's probably one of the biggest overall changes in a Medicare payment system in many, many years, and it's going to have a big impact. It's going to have a big impact in home care. It's already had an impact in skilled nursing facilities, rehab facilities, acute care settings. And basically what it is instead of actually being paid just for amounts of service, it's going to be based on, it's patient-driven. So it's going to be driven by patient diagnosis and their comorbidities. So it's going to be based on what types of services based on how sick a patient is. And what that changes for us is, not really changes, but what we really have to focus on is that we're documenting correctly and making sure that we're coding diagnoses appropriately so that that information is going back to Medicare and they are seeing at what level our patients are. So there's been a lot of changes in the system for diagnosis coding. There's been a lot of changes in the comprehensive assessment that we have to do on patients. So the recommendation really since this past January has been for home care agencies to start, planning and preparing for this change come, another year. Now it's only 6 months away. So we've been doing that. We've been doing education. We have gone to the necessary coding training, the OASIS training. We're training staff. There's a big change. It will impact also our revenue cycle. Whereas in home care, our billing was in 60-day cycles, they're cutting that into 30-day cycles. So our revenue cycle is going to have to be much, much more efficient in order to get the payments because Medicare pays us episodically. So we get paid when a patient is admitted, a percentage of what the payment is, and we get a payment at the end of an episode for a patient. That's going from 60 to 30 days, and therefore, it will be less money with each payment, and as well as the fact that we're going to have to make sure our documentation and our billing, all our ducks are in a row. So there's a lot of preparation going into this. So along with building the census and maintaining it, our other focus right now has been working very hard to look at what impact, and the reimbursement system is referred to as PDGM, which means a patient-driven groupings model for reimbursement. So there are a lot of changes at how utilization of services will be. But we've been working on that, and that's what our other focus is at this point, so that we're prepared. Because the smaller agencies are going to feel it the most. They're going to feel the greatest impact. And that's been forecast, but it can be done. And I think that we have a really good staff. They're responsive to learning and change, and they've had a lot of change in the last couple of years. So I think that there's, I think it looks positive for the VNA, even though we're small. I think we can manage it. So, and I can just keep everybody up to date, as we go along in terms of where we are with preparation. And again, this is effective come January, so we still have some time.
Well, thank you, Wendy, for coming, and thank you for all your hard work and your staff. And we know it's difficult time for the VNA, but I know you guys are working hard to improve it and keep it going. So thank you for that.
I do have one question. Have you been trying to market at physician offices?
We have. We actually have a pretty strong referral. So we get quite a few referrals from the physician offices, but we do also bring them our information.
Right.
And when we do get referrals, kind of talk to them on the phone in terms of what we, what we offer for services. Because a lot of our patients do get referred. They don't necessarily have to go to the hospital. They go to the doctor.
Right.
They have a medication change, and they want the VNA to follow. So
Thank you.
we do that as well.
Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, new business item number 3.
That was regarding authorization for the interim town manager to enter into a contract with E&D Specialty Stands, Inc. for work to be done on Scalise Field bleachers to meet compliance regulations in an amount not to exceed $97,920, and a move to transfer $97,920 from contingency to the Scalise Field bleachers account in the Sage Park Improvement Fund, pending Board of Finance approval. I think we have Mr. Wood to speak on this topic.
Hey, Steve.
How's everybody doing?
Good, how are you?
I brought some pictures to explain what areas we are concerned about. Charlie, if you just want to pass them on. So how this came to light, we had a few residents and citizens over the last 6 months reach out to us, some through Mr. Rosso, regarding the difficulty of elderly people and people with limited mobility of getting up to the top tiers of the bleachers and moving around. And we reached out to two companies to start off, Galvin out of Massachusetts and Hussey out of Connecticut, and both companies came down and we started explaining to them where our areas of concern were, where the aisles weren't wide enough, wheelchairs to get up there, or for an elderly person to climb up to the top. And at that point, they asked when the last time we had a bleacher inspection done. Unfortunately, I've been with the town for 20 years, and as far as I know, we've never had a bleacher inspection done. We know that the bleachers were modified sometime in the early 1990s to prevent kids from being able to slide through the front rail of it because the opening was too great. So we hired Galvin Brothers to do an assessment of the bleachers, and come to find out that we found several areas throughout the bleachers that are major safety concerns and liabilities to us as town employees. The biggest concern is if you go to the top of the bleachers and you look down, it's about a 35-foot fall where a kid, if he was up there playing, could fall through the back of the bleachers, and as he fell through, he would land on a chain link fence. So that was problem number one. Problem number two is there's no protection on the side with the fabric, so the same thing could happen, a kid could fall. Third thing is an average step is somewhere around 7 to 9 inches. Our current step is 10 inches. So in the process, we came to find out that we should put an intermediate step where the gait would be more uniform throughout the code of standards of walking in your house and walking into stores, bleachers, anywhere else it might be. So we put it out to bid, Jennifer Ochoa and myself, and it came back with only one company bidding on it, was A&D. Their bid came in at $283,000. They had several other areas that they thought at some point we could address, but we went with the major safety issues first, which is the 35-foot fall, the lengthening, opening the aisles more, putting a handrail for accessibility, and enclosing everything where we would have no fall potential for somebody to get hurt. We called A&D back, explained to them where we were looking to go, and they believe that they can complete all the work for $97,000. Our next question was, hopefully, could we get it done while Scalise Field is being closed for the renovation of the field? And unfortunately, he is currently booked until Labor Day. We don't think it's a good move on the town's part or our part to leave the bleachers open throughout the fall sports season. So we are looking to get it done hopefully right after Labor Day. It'll impact 2 soccer games that we're aware of, and possibly 1 football game, and a couple of youth games, mostly midget football. But that's where we are with that.
Appreciate that.
Steve, is this both sides?
It is both the home and the visitor side. Our game plan is to attack the home side first, because that holds right around 3,000 fans, and then from there move to the visitor side. So even if for the first football game or the first soccer game, which I don't know who the soccer team is playing, but I believe football is playing Tolland, it's not going to draw that big of a crowd. So we could put the home and the visitor side all in the home side bleachers.
Okay.
Okay. Appreciate that. We've heard about this before. I think any of us that have been in those bleachers have noticed the issues with them.
I'm sorry, how long is the project going to take?
He says 7 to 10 days. So we figured if he attacks the home side first, he'll be done prior to any major sporting events through the high school fall season, and then he does the visitor side whenever he can, and they don't use the visitor side during any other athletic contests.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions for Steve? Hearing none, we'll take a motion.
Okay, move to authorize the interim town manager to enter into a contract with E&D Specialty Stands, Inc. for work to be done at the Scalise Field bleachers to meet compliancy, an amount not to exceed $97,920, and move to transfer $97,920 from the contingency to the Scalise Field bleachers account in the Sage Park Improvement Fund pending approval of the Board of Finance.
Second.
Thank you. Any further questions? Hearing none, all those in favor? Oh, yes.
Is this one of the items that the chairman of the Board of Finance would hold hostage for the stump approval? Am I
If I understood
Understanding that
his comments correctly, I guess, but I don't know how you would hold some
But this
safety.
is the same item he was speaking about, is my
I believe so. That's the first I heard of it was tonight, so I believe this is one of the ones he's talking about, but
I
mean-
think it's a shame that they would try to hold up on a safety improvement like this.
me too.
Thank you.
All right, I think we need to send it to them, and I hope they understand the importance of this issue. So, any other questions?
No, my only comment to follow Charlie's is that it's not the 1970s Finance Board, it's 2019. I think we should follow the right rules and procedures and go through the town manager and the correct department. So Mark asked Mr. Ahern to go out there and survey Worthington Ridge and any other areas that were brought up for tree stumps, because I've driven down that road, there's still a lot of tree stumps on personal property also. So I don't want to set the precedent that people think that if we go through with this, that the town will be responsible for the sidewalk to the street, and then they expect that the other ones will get done too. So I just want to do this the right way. I don't want to come in here and strong arm us into things like this. Just do it the right way. That's my only comment on that whole issue.
If I could just sum up my feeling, I'm not against the tree
I'm
stump
not
program.
either. Just do it the right
I
way.
just want the town engineer to decide what and how we should do it. If we grind the stumps, would they affect the nice slate sidewalks on Worthington Ridge? There's other factors, and like Brendan said, let's do it the correct way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
I hope everybody supports the safety issue. This is important.
right. Yeah, different topic, but yeah, I think,
Make a comment?
yeah.
Yeah, no, as putting on my town planner hat, I'd be happy to investigate that with Mike. As it relates to the historic district, the streetscape, and I agree that this Worthington Ridge is a gem
Sure.
in Berlin. It's beautiful, and exploring opportunities to beautify it with stump removal and reseeding and grading could be great. But I agree. Let's study it. Let's evaluate.
Yeah, those are good points.
channels to make-
Historical preservation, or with the sidewalks, and who knows what's under the sidewalks if you might need to have public works involved
Absolutely.
with the sewer drains and all that.
Okay, anyone else? Hearing none, motion on the floor, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Steve. Okay, what do we got? Number 4, yeah.
Number 4, authorize interim town manager to enter into a forbearance agreement with Real Property Acquisition LLC and Connecticut Sand and Stone Corporation for a period until October 1st, 2019, in exchange for payment of $36,000 and an agreement to make monthly payments towards back taxes and interest amount of $6,000 monthly, and to review approval, subject to review of Corporation Council. We have Mr. Edge here to.
Thank you very much. Yes, this is basically renewing to some degree a forbearance agreement we did with the developer interested in the Connecticut Sand and Stone property, which is a 75 acres heavy industrial behind McDonald's on the other side of the tracks. We had been in kind of a holding pattern, more due to attorney things on their side. This agreement will allow us to, again, not foreclose on it. We will get hopefully an immediate check for $36,000 and then $6,000 a month. We are continuing to work with them. There are some issues that we, the town and the developer, are working through with DEP, DECD, and the good thing is they're willing to come to the table and to continue paying us on it, which we hadn't seen any money for probably a decade, if not more. We're working in good faith with them. Again, the long-term goal would be about 15 usable acres of heavy industrial land But right now, really, it's giving them time to go through the process, and because they're working with two different state agencies, it's taking a little longer than expected.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Chris. That's great. Get some money finally on that property, then hopefully get it to be some usable space down the road.
Yeah, I would say probably up until December, we had received approximately 12 months at $6,000 a month. So before this kind of stopped to the attorneys, we had gotten probably north of 125,000, no, 125, call it $90,000, which again, we had seen nothing for a long time. And I know that both the interim town manager and myself talk to them on a regular basis and continue to assist as best we can from our side.
Thank you.
Great. Take a motion on this?
Okay, move to authorize the interim town manager to enter into a forbearance agreement with Real Property Acquisition LLC and Connecticut Sand and Stone Corporation for a period until October 1st, 2019, in exchange for a payment of $36,000 and an agreement to make monthly payments toward back taxes and interest of $6,000, subject to the review and approval of Corporation Council.
Second on that?
Second.
Thank you very much. Any further questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? So moved.
Thank you very much. Just
Thanks,
a
Chris.
quick reminder, 5:30 tomorrow night, Shuttle Pedal Country Club, our annual awards night. Still taking reservations. Happy to have you there to help celebrate Berlin businesses. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Number 5.
Item number 5, approve the transfer of $25,000 from the contingency account to the senior center repairs account in the general fund. We have Mr. Delaney here to present on the topic.
Good evening.
Hey.
Before I start, I was hoping I might take a minute for something. As you're all aware, we're going out to bond. This bond sale is scheduled for next Tuesday for some important items, including Scalise Field and several others. As part of that normal process of doing a general obligation bond, we hire, like every community does, a credit rating agency or more than one. In our case, we hire S&P to review the town. The town's had a AA+ credit rating, which is second highest and very strong. We just got word this afternoon that they're going to raise the town's credit rating to a AAA, which is the highest rating possible. And the notes are going to be raised to an SP1+, which SP1 is the highest rating, with a plus being even higher. So I think that's great news for the town and an indication of a lot of the good things that have been happening over several years. So congratulations to all of you.
Great. Good to hear. Good news. Best news we've probably heard financially in a long time. So that's
I tend
great.
not to
That's
have good
excellent.
news, so I figured I'd seize the moment.
Yes, because it doesn't last long. Yes, I know.
No.
All right.
So this one's pretty straightforward. We talked about it during the budget. There are safety matters at the senior center. The budget that was adopted last week included $50,000 to make important repairs. Probably most notably in that money will be the kitchen repairs. We're at risk of health issues and potentially shutting down the kitchen. This money is intended to start working on floor repairs. As you go through the senior center, there are parts of the floor that are uneven and broken. For many people to walk through, it might be a nuisance. For our seniors, it's a tripping hazard and a potential very serious risk. So this falls under the category of safety. We have, as the Board of Finance Chairman mentioned earlier, there is money in contingency that was budgeted, as we do every year, for a number of matters. As we approach the end of the fiscal year, there is a balance there, and this seems like a prudent use of a small amount of money to begin to address what could be a very serious matter for our seniors' safety.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll take a motion on this.
Okay, move to approve the transfer of $25,000 from the contingency account to the senior center repairs account in the general fund.
Second on that?
Second.
Thank you very much. Any further comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So moved. Mr. Delaney, I will assume that as we send this along to the Board of Finance, that you would make the same presentation to them on the
It's actually the exact same document, except they changed town council and
Okay.
finance.
I kind of figured that, but, so, yeah, I mean, I just hope they understand the urgency of the safety issues.
And this is in answer to your earlier question, this is one of the other items that they've spoken about.
Yeah. Anytime, so it's time to move forward with it and get it done. Not tie it to other projects or other
We
things.
would hope that all the members of the Board of Finance and the town council want the best for the town, not
It's
hold each other hostage.
what it should be
Sort of
about.
approach.
Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more.
Can I make one?
Yes.
I'll wait, because you're going to vote.
Oh, we,
Well, I was just going to make one comment about the
Voted.
stumps, just
Oh, yes.
logistically.
yes.
If you don't vote tonight, the concept behind it would be to use certain surplus funds in the current year budget. If you were to choose not to vote tonight on that, then there would not be an opportunity for that transfer to be approved by both the council and the Board of Finance in June. Now, you would be able to execute the transfer, but we wouldn't be able to use FY19 money to pay for a contract we enter into in July or later, because now you're into the new year. So if you don't take action tonight, certainly doesn't mean the stump grinding or removal can't happen. We just wouldn't use FY19 funds to do it. You would pass that opening. So it's between tonight and then the Board of Finance meeting next week. And it's possible the Board of Finance could call a special meeting, but since your next meeting is going to be June 18th, even if they called a special meeting, I don't know that there's enough time between then and the end of June for Public Works to actually contract with somebody and actually do work that we could then, from accounting rules, actually pay for with 19 money.
Good luck trying to find somebody.
We need to take action tonight.
I'm sorry?
We need to take action tonight. That's fine.
And we could use next year's money. I mean, again, when the budget starts July 1, there's $300,000 of contingency. For example, we use $15,000 of that to do the Elton Road property cleanup. It's not that it's always for other things. You could take $10,000 from contingency and FY20 money. I just want to make you aware that if you don't do it tonight, you're pretty much out of time using 19 money.
Well, we have money in next fiscal year to do it out of contingency.
Again, it's not that it can't be done. It just wouldn't be using the surplus
I
money
mean,
this year.
you know, there's a process, and the process is that Public Works, I mean, this should have come to us from Public Works, really, has to go out there and survey these stumps and see where they're at, what property they're on. Some could be on private property. We don't know. I mean, I've seen some of them. I see some definitely look like town property, but that's not for me to say or any of us to say. It's not for the Board of Finance to say either. It's for our Public Works Department to follow the procedures that we have in place. That's why they're in place. So before we make a judgment call, we have the information before us. We have no information whatsoever on the stumps other than the Board of Finance chairman telling us about stumps, which we all are aware of. But we need to know how many, where they are, what is something that the town, what property they're on that the town would pay for them, like we always do. It's nothing new. This is not a new procedure.
So-
Have they been attended to thus far? Have people from?
You know,
There's been
that's a
many
good question,
complaints.
yeah.
I mean, there's
That's
been
interesting.
complaint after complaint. Why couldn't we move to have $10,000 put aside contingent upon the report from, Public
Received the
Works?
complaints.
The complaints have been all over Facebook, Charlie. And we had
I'm
a
sorry, I
person
thought
here
they'd go to
today.
Public Works. I didn't know Facebook ran the town government.
I didn't
not
say
what
that,
she's
Charlie. If you'd listened to me,
Yeah.
what I said is there have
Heard a
been many complaints. It's just like those phantom complaints about the budget being too high. Where did they come from?
I don't know. I went by the vote.
Okay. So, again, why couldn't we do a motion that it would be contingent upon the findings of Public Works? And get it so that we can use this money. If we have it, why put it over?
We don't think it'll be done in
We won't
time.
lose this money. It'll just go into the general fund.
realize
The
that,
town's
but
not
why
losing
not?
anything.
Why not, we've had citizen raise concern. It's not a lot of money. Let's do it.
I would say we wait for the process. We're going to do it. If they have to be done, we will do it. And it could be next fiscal year. It's not going to change anything. I mean, I don't think that the Public Works is going to get their job done, that quickly. I hope they do. But, I mean, there's a lot of stumps around town. on, Worthington Ridge is one place, but they are other places. There is that big one on Farmington Avenue. Again, I don't know whose property that is at that point, but that's some of the things we need to determine. Mike, come on, come on up, since we're talking about stumps.
Right. So shouldn't we just finish this motion?
Stumps on Worthington Ridge between the sidewalk and the road
Yeah.
are probably town property. I mean, they're in the right of way.
yeah,
So-
yeah.
And I think Mark had gone out and counted like 26. I counted at least 20. I was doing some drive-bys, and we did receive at least 2 resident complaints, I think, through the town manager's office when Jack was in charge, that came to me. And the newspaper reporters were asking about, does the town take out the Eversource stumps? And we said, typically, no, we don't do it.
Okay.
But now it seems to be a larger issue.
Eversource doesn't do it either.
Eversource, yeah, and the position that Eversource would probably take is they'd rather take the trees that are threatening power lines and spend money on 500 stumps, because if they had to take every stump out, they would take less trees down. So that's sort of, I would think that and kind of like our thinking too with our trees as well. But if money is put aside, we could do as many. And my cost range is between $300 and $600, because you're not going to rip those stumps out between the sidewalk and the curb. You're going to grind them down below grade, remove the chips, and then put topsoil and seed, because that's probably the less invasive way to do it. Otherwise, you're ripping the sidewalk up and not half the road, but the curb. So, I mean, I know grinders will come out for $300 a stump for a normal size stump, but with the process the way it is, it might be as high as $600. But if you put a list together, we could get our tree company to give us a quote. And I could get that done before the next town council meeting, absolutely.
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
great.
So can we vote on that at the next town council meeting?
You can,
And then you would be able to go ahead and execute that in time?
well, what we could do is.
I mean, as long as we,
No,
Can we vote tonight?
I think I'm shut off with getting POs for fiscal.
still have to both execute the
Just said you
contract anyway.
can't.
Well, you can open
So,
do the PO, and the question is the money. You can't open a purchase
Right,
order
without
without
the
funding available, so the concept
do it
would be
tonight.
So if we
move
get-
money, so the funding would be in
Right.
place.
if we get a price and you get the contractor lined up, and so we know what we have to move, which would be nice to know what we have to move, so we should be precise. I think the Board of Finance would want to be precise too, as our financial fiduciaries. Then we could vote on it at the next meeting, and then we could open up the PO. At that point, it's going to cost us $15,000, $12,000, $8,000, I don't know.
Well, if you made it, the thing is, you're making a transfer
Right.
at the end of the fiscal year between operating accounts.
So if he,
Come June 30th, those operating accounts can only be used to satisfy bills incurred by June 30th.
$1,000 for
So
stumps.
your meeting, the next regularly scheduled Board of Finance meeting wouldn't be until July.
right, I believe the chairman said he would conduct a special meeting. So, yes, sir.
In real dollars, is it gonna save the town any money by taking it out of this year's budget or next year's budget?
No, it's not going to save. The only reason,
So it's just an accounting maneuver. It doesn't matter whether we approve it this month or next month for the actual cost to our taxpayers.
well, it would, the only thing that would matter is you would use next year's contingency
I
money,
understand it.
unknown.
And if we don't use this year's contingency, it just goes to the general fund anyways, right?
Absolutely.
So in essence, the taxpayers aren't losing anything
Oh,
by
no.
waiting an extra week or.
Unless there's a major snowstorm, blizzard, hurricane, where the contingency fund could be wiped out because of
Right.
overtime, et
We could go to the
cetera.
general fund where this money was parked. It's all the same difference.
It's going to park in the general
Why
fund
not,
anyway.
we have it, why not use it this year instead of,
But no, to answer your question.
and again, contingent upon a report from here.
So wait, so before we, so we.
Sorry, I took you off course on the other.
That's okay.
motion.
Yeah, we needed to vote on,
You already did vote on number.
we voted, right?
Yeah,
We're
on
good,
number 5,
okay. On the senior center, okay. All right, so on to item 6.
Okay, item 6, approve transfer of $100,000 from the contingency account to the McGee School construction account in the general fund. We have Delaney here.
Mr. Delaney.
This is one where there's been recent discussions as to who should pay. If the Board of Ed has money left over at the end of the fiscal year, should the Board of Ed pay for this? Buildings in the physical structure have resided under the town, and that's where Department 61 comes in. The Board of Ed budget is an operating budget. Whether the Board of Ed has money left over or not, that could go back to replenish what contingency money would go to the general fund to fund balance. This motion was brought up really about timing. You're talking about demoing a classroom and rebuilding it for the new purpose. You obviously have a hard deadline of the start of school. And so the purpose of doing this was to provide funding in a capital account that could then be carried over so that facilities could begin to contract and start doing work in June as soon as school ends. If we wait for a 1% fund, so that's the proverbial 1% fund, so any surplus from the Board of Ed, they can request to keep 1%. You have to wait effectively until the fiscal year's over because you don't actually have a surplus to assign until you actually know that you've paid your bills. So rather than starting potentially in mid to late June, you would be starting, facilities would be starting mid to late July. So the purpose here really isn't about answering the question of who should pay for this. It's about putting money into the capital account so we can hire contractors, take out purchase orders, and start the work to increase the likelihood that the classroom will be available for the students and teachers when school begins.
Yeah, that was the whole reason, before, I don't know what the Board of Finance gets involved in and when they get involved, but before we passed the budget, I had these discussions with Mr. Benigni and Mr. Tenza. And this was what we talked about. We were all concerned that we wouldn't get this classroom started on time for the special needs children who have to move up to McGee. So we kind of agreed that we would take some money from the town side and transfer it to them so they could get started on this classroom, and they would fund the rest of it with some of their year-end money that they believed that would be available. So they were, very encouraged by that and happy that we get this thing going. So that's the reason for this. I don't know what has transpired since my discussions, but this is the last thing I know that I heard from the superintendent he wanted. So if the superintendent wants it, and we had already talked about it, I don't see why we wouldn't transfer this money and make it available as soon as possible to begin construction of what would be another potential safety issue for our students coming into McGee. So that's my take on it. So with that in mind, we'll take a motion if there's any discussion.
Okay.
Happy to have it.
Move to approve the transfer of $100,000 from the contingency account to the McGee School construction account in the general fund.
Second on that?
Second.
Thank you very much. Any further discussion?
Let's get it done.
Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Thank you. Okay, number 7.
Number 7, transfer $54,944 as detailed on the attachment to cover higher than budgeted expenditures in the accounts identified on the attachment. Again, we have Mr. Delaney here to present.
These are, again, a continuation of kind of the standard year-end items. They're almost all personnel related. We had a couple people, one person who was out, one person who was moving into retirement, went part-time, and in backfilling the position and working towards reasonable transition, the cost was a little bit higher than budgeted. It was offset by leaving a lower-level blue-collar position open for a period of time. But because we're transferring between departments, that needs to be approved by the Council and Board of Finance, even though the dollar amount is reasonably small. And then the last one is water control. We leave principal and interest into a capital account while a project is ongoing. The project was completed, and therefore the interest has to move to an operating account. It's an accounting thing. So essentially, the last one for water control is just taking the interest expense budget and moving it into the operating account so it matches where the actual costs have been incurred all year. There's no additional cost. It's just a budget change.
Okay, thank you. Take a motion?
Okay, move to transfer $54,944 as detailed on the accompanying spreadsheet to cover higher than budgeted expenditures and identified accounts.
Second on that?
Second.
Thank you. Any further questions, comments? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? So moved. Great.
Okay, this is regarding the approval of a transfer of $100,000 from the overtime account in the Union Negotiating Reserve Fund to the EPA CROG account in the Economic Development Fund. Mr. Delaney here to present.
As it says, as part of remediating the contaminated property at 889 Farmington Ave and as part of the economic development initiative that is happening there, the town secured a grant from the federal EPA through CROG for $200,000, and the intent was to use it in support of purchasing a hydraulic pumping system to essentially, the way it's been described to me in layman's terms, pull the groundwater out, clean it, put it back in, and over a period of possibly up to 30 years, eventually the groundwater at 889 will be clean and no longer contaminated. The flip side of the $200,000 grant was that the town was required to bring forward $100,000 as part of that initiative. CROG offered us a loan for $100,000 to match our portion. However, as we've gone through the process of negotiating several contracts, we always accrue for the anticipated impact of what those contracts are going to cost. And in the budget, that shows up as a wage negotiation line in the townwide department. If the contract isn't settled at the end of the year, that money is transferred to a union negotiation reserve. And so contracts that go on for a period of time, you eventually build resources there. The police contract was the most noticeable one that took about 2.5 years after expiration to settle. Included in that is an expectation of where would overtime costs go, where would wages go, anything else that might affect those costs. As you go out over time, sometimes we're over or potentially under on those overtime expectations. Sometimes we also have employees who elect to leave town service. They retire, they quit, what have you. And so this money has been reserved from various contracts and is sitting in this fund. We do not have a single open contract on the town side as of right now. All of them have been settled. So rather than borrowing the money, this proposal is to take $100,000 from that is in there, and there's $100,635. So this essentially would take all of that money, but it would put it into this fund so it's available when we need to put the hydraulic pump in place and begin that process. I will note as part of the sale agreement, that is one of the conditions that the town must meet is working on the remediation of the 889 property and putting in the apron and all of those elements. So this is an integral part of that, and having the money in place will allow that project to continue, hopefully uninterrupted. That's the basis here.
Okay. Thanks. Any questions? If not, we'll take a motion.
Okay, move to approve the transfer of $100,000 from the overtime account in the Union Negotiation Reserve Fund to the EPA CRCOG account in the Economic Development Fund.
Thank you. Second on that?
Second.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. 9.
This one's regarding waiving the bidding requirements to purchase a rebuilt pump from A&W Chesterton Company for Deming Road Pump Station in the amount of $8,000. We have Mr. Jarma here to present.
Hey,
As
Ray.
luck would have it, we had a $6,800 rebuilt pump for a couple months ago, and then we turned around and we had to rebuild another pump. So we took it out already. It's going to cost about $8,000. So at this point in time, I'm going to be going over the $10,000 limit, so I need the approval to go over that limit.
Okay. Thank you. Take a motion on this.
Okay, move to waive the bidding requirements to purchase a rebuilt pump from A.W. Chesterton Company for the Deming Road Pump Station in the amount of $8,000, as this is in the best interest of the town.
Thank you. Second on that?
Second.
Thank you. Any questions, comments? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ray.
Thanks, Ray.
What do we got? 10?
This is regarding authorizing the interim town manager to enter into a 5-year agreement with Siemens of Billerica, Massachusetts, to provide street light maintenance services through June 30th, 2024. We have Mr. Ahern here to present.
So we have over 2,500 street lights. They're all LED photo cells, and the contract with Tanco was running out, so we went out to bid. And I'm kind of glad we did because we actually are going to realize some cost savings with the apparent low bidder, which is Siemens. And we had 3 bidders. Siemens is the apparent low bidder. Jim Horble and I took a look at the prices and said, you know, there's a spread here, so we actually contacted one reference, which was the first selectman of Old Saybrook, to find out what his experience was with Siemens. And we also called Siemens and said, you know, how can you do this? Siemens is a large company. They actually take care of 16,000 streetlights in Worcester, Mass., as well as about 55 other municipalities in New England. Carl Fortuna of Old Saybrook said he's been using them. He's very happy with their T&M prices. They're a good company, good crew, and he's comfortable with their basically their service. So we're comfortable with Siemens. It's a 5-year contract. There'll be a CPI adjustment every year. And, I mean, obviously a contract will have a standard termination clause. We can just both part ways if it doesn't work out. But I think it's probably a good move for us to go with Siemens at this point and take over all the streetlight maintenance. And we're also replacing poles as part of that. So the unit costs you see there are specifically because we have some older wooden poles that need to be swapped out. So we wanted to have at least some assurance of what those numbers are on a per pole basis because we have quite a few. So we're recommending that we go into a 5-year contract with Siemens.
We had, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
We had Tanco?
Yes.
Wow, I mean,
Yeah.
what a difference.
So we looked at the costs and we're like,
No-brainer, my God.
Oh, my God.
It is. It's one of those bid results where you look and say, as long as they can do the work, there's really only one choice.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Good job.
I have to ask.
Sure.
Back when I had hair, I was reassured that all the parks would be, the lights would be replaced with LED bulbs.
Right.
And it hasn't been done. What can we do to fulfill that promise that was made to me 4 or 5 years ago?
Oh, well, I can look into it. It was before my time, and I might have had hair back then, but I'll take a look into that. I was focusing on the actual. That's a separate category because we're talking about the lights along the roads.
Yeah.
Parks is
Understand,
a
but
separate.
There's a cost savings there,
Yeah.
I'm sure, in lighting alone, so
Yeah, there'll be a return on
I
investment.
would appreciate it.
And I think Doug Solik had talked to me about doing certain phasing that in. So I'll talk to him and see what
Thank you.
what can be done.
Okay.
Thanks. Okay, we'll take a motion.
I will move to authorize the interim town manager to enter into a 5-year agreement with Siemens of Billerica, Mass. To provide streetlight maintenance services through June 30th, 2024, as this is in the best interest of the town.
Thank you. Second on that?
Second.
Thank you very much. Any further questions, comments? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Number 11.
11, this is regarding the approval of a mediated settlement of a claim asserting against the town by Mastro Battisto Incorporated in connection to a construction project, replacement of bridge, the bridge on Farmington Avenue over the Mattabesset River. And this is for the authorization for the interim town manager to execute the settlement agreement on behalf of the town. We have Mr. D'Onofrio here for questions, and Mr. Hearn's here too if
Yeah, this is what you
necessary.
talked about.
Correct. In a nutshell,
Yep.
the contractor encountered differing site conditions, including contaminated soils, and submitted change order requests of about $603,000. The town, through the mediation process, was able to achieve a settlement subject to your approval for $125,000. So if the settlement's approved, the contractor will come back, complete the punch list work, submit the closeout documents required by contract, including proof of payment to the DBE subs on the job, and get paid their contract balance, retainage, plus the $125,000 on the change orders in exchange for a complete release to the town. The plan is for us to seek reimbursement from the state for this amount, because it's a legitimate project expense, and from our perspective, the contractor's claim really arises out of the state's decision not to perform testing that was recommended pre-bid. Had it been performed and had the conditions been known at bid time, contractors could have priced their work accordingly. There wouldn't have been this out-of-sequence additional work claim in the context of a change order. So that's what the plan is. The town has a consulting engineer, WMC, that's worked with the town throughout the project, that's going to work on that aspect of the state, and I'll get involved as needed in terms of the funding. I've talked to the finance director about using reimbursement funds that he's expecting to receive from the state for the project to fund the settlement.
Great. Okay, so we'll take a motion.
Okay, move to approve a mediated settlement of a claim asserted against the town by Mastro Battisto, Inc., in connection with the construction project known as replacement of bridge number 04474, Farmington Avenue over Mattabasset River in Berlin, Connecticut, state project number 07185, and authorization for the interim town manager to execute a settlement agreement on behalf of the town upon review of Corporation Council.
Second on that?
Second.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Number 12?
This is to approve pursuant to Section 6-6 of the Town Charter for the temporary engagement by the town for attorney services of Charles R. Andreas of LeClaire Ryan, an hourly rate of $195 to assist the town attorney in connection to various matters concerning the potential development at 0 Atkins Street, in amount not to exceed $5,000. Mr. D'Onofrio and myself, if you have any comments.
Right, this is coming 8-30G application. There's a text amendment. I think there's a hearing this Thursday night
Yes.
on it, at Planning and Zoning.
Text amendment and map amendment. yes.
So specialized counsel with respect to 8-30G applications is what the proposal is.
Yeah, I mean, this is...
Pistol Creek?
Yes. So it's a very sensitive issue and one that we need to make sure the town, is represented, and appreciate Attorney D'Onofrio, and actually a couple residents as well recommended this attorney, so that's great.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll take a motion.
Sure. Move to approve pursuant to 6-6 of the Charter of the temporary engagement of the town of Attorney Charles R. Andres from LeClaire Ryan at the hourly rate of $195 to assist the town attorney in connection with various matters concerning a potential development at 0 Atkins Street for an amount not to exceed $5,000.
Second on that?
Second.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions? Hearing none, all is in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Number, what do we do? Didn't we add
The temporary.
13?
Just 1 second.
Back to myself here.
13.
Yes, number 13, this is regarding a temporary salary increase for the assistant town planner, while the town planner, myself, is acting as the interim town planner, interim town manager, realizing that there's an increased responsibility and not enough time in the day to fulfill both duties as town planner and interim town manager. There's going to be increased workload that's going to fall onto the assistant town planner and the planning staff. So in the assistant town planner is in the middle management union, and we just recently negotiated adjustments to the contract that would allow middle management person to have an increase of 7.5% for their existing salary if they're if they're doing additional duties as appointed by the town manager. So as I'm working as the town manager, the assistant town manager is going to be town planner is going to have to be doing additional duties on top of her existing workload, which is probably going to require more time in the office. She's going to be manning the public counter full time, and she'll be fielding more public inquiries, increased office coverage, and she's just going to be needed to have more decision making and responsibility on planning zoning matters. So I would request that the town council give authority to have this increase of 7.5% for the duration of while I'm in the interim town manager position.
All right. I wonder, we have a executive session coming up in a minute. I wonder if we might just add this into that, talk about some personnel matters. We could add that in.
Is it just to talk about compensation?
Yes. No? Other things?
Not really
No.
an executive session topic. It's just
All right.
compensation. Executive session for personnel typically is to talk about performance, hiring, firing, evaluating,
Okay. Well,
not just comp.
okay. So then, yes. Denise? Come on up, Denise. I mean, I want to make sure we're, you know,
The union contract doesn't actually require it for this situation because the union contract is specific to when somebody is appointed by the town manager to serve in a role where somebody has been vacated from.
okay.
It's not that it's not appropriate to look at Maureen in this circumstance because of what's going on, but there's not a required contract to do that.
Okay.
I just wanted to clarify.
Thank you. Okay, that's why I just wanted to make sure we don't go down the wrong road. Okay, so, yeah, I mean, I know she's going to be doing some additional work as you are. So what do you all think before we make a motion? Comments? Questions? We good with it?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems
Good.
reasonable. It's, just for a period of time.
Yes.
And so.
I'm okay with it.
Okay.
Compensate somebody for the additional work they're doing.
Okay. Okay, so we'll take a motion. We're good.
Okay, move to approve a temporary 7.5% salary increase for the assistant town planner for additional responsibilities and duties required to be fulfilled during the duration that the town planner is interim town manager.
Take a second on that.
Second.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So moved. Thank you. Thanks. So,
Was the
Neighborhood assistant.
neighborhood assistance.
oh, yes, right. So we got one more, right? The neighborhood assistance. So you have that motion?
I do.
Right, so we'll take a motion. We had a public hearing tonight. We're now voting on the Neighborhood Assistance Act.
Okay, I'll make a simple motion to approve the 2019 Connecticut Neighborhood Assistance Act and Tax Credit Program for the town of Berlin.
Okay, second on that?
Second.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Thank you. We'll go to the town manager report.
Sure. First, I'd like to thank you all for the appointment, and I'm getting acclimated to the new position, and I look forward to serving the council in the Berlin this capacity, town of Berlin this capacity. It's been a busy 3 days. One of the topics that has consumed quite a bit of time was we've been working with the Animal Control Department, Public Grounds, and Corporation Council regarding the capture and removal of some homeless and feral cats that have taken home on the 889 Farmington Avenue. We developed an action plan to execute this endeavor to capture it. I think it's 5 to 6 cats presumed. The cats will be captured and brought to the animal control facility, and we're looking for a permanent home for the animals.
Good.
The Belcher Brook Inceptor Sewer Rehabilitation Project is complete, substantially complete. The Cardinal Engineering issued a short punch list of a couple of remaining items, so it's nice to see that project wrapping up. As mentioned a little earlier, I just want to state that the Planning and Zoning Commission is holding a public hearing this Thursday, June 6th, regarding a text and map amendment on 19 acres of land on Atkins Street and Spruce Brook Road. The text and map amendment is designed to accommodate an affordable housing development pursuant to 8-30G of the Connecticut State Statutes. The concept plan that is being presented is a 319 unit dwelling unit project. 96 would be deed restricted affordable housing, and 223 would be market rate. We've got a lot of input and comments from town departments, other governmental agencies, capital regions of government. The city of Middletown has weighed in. Neighborhood associations in Berlin and Middletown and other residents have provided some comments mostly expressing current concerns as it relates to traffic and impact on sewer and water facilities, access to transportation for residents of this development, and just impact on the overall character of the land. So public hearing is going to be June 6th on that, and we'll see how that goes. 2 weeks ago, the town signed, former town manager and Newport Realty Group signed the purchase and sales agreement for the property on Farmington Avenue. Very exciting day, and we're happy to move that forward. We know that they're working on their site plan application and plan design, and hopefully we can get an application for public hearing to the Plan and Zoning Commission in August.
That's great.
This year. And another fun note, a ribbon cutting is being held at the Hatchery Brook Community Gardens on June 7th, 9:30 a.m. You're all welcome to attend if you'd like. This is in relation to the new fence that was put up around the community garden. We received some grants from PepsiCo and Eversource, and we want to thank them for their donations.
Great, thanks. Okay, good. So, special committee reports, we had what do we have? We had an ordinance committee, right? I think we wrapped up everything, right? But the leash law,
Yeah.
right? I think that's where,
Yeah.
right? We left
Well,
and we're gonna have
determined that some of the tax programs that we had were excellent.
Excellent,
We weren't
yes.
even aware that we had.
That's right.
So,
Get those out there.
as a matter of fact, I got an application for my parents, for
Good,
the veterans.
great,
You know,
beautiful.
so, yeah, which is wonderful.
Yeah.
Um,
I think we're,
But, yeah, the leash law, we're meeting with,
conservation, right?
Yes,
What time is that meeting, do you know?
6:30.
6:30
6:30? Okay.
next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday?
We have a lot of things on that agenda?
Not a whole lot.
You'll go first anyway.
Yeah, we'll go first anyways, yeah.
And ask them
It'll
if they
be scheduled on the agenda.
ask them if they could go later, but that's all right. Because I wanted to get to the McGee celebration.
It's always at 6:30.
What time is McGee? Do we know? McGee thing?
Do you know what time McGee is?
oh, that's right.
Yeah, I know. I wanted to get there.
Yeah, because I am going to attend that.
yeah,
That
what-
starts at 6, it's 6 to 8.
6 to 8 at McGee. What if we could
Yeah.
put
We
if we
can
pushed
work on
our
pushing.
thing maybe till 7, maybe we'll have to leave.
Yeah, I
Just
mean,
like to
that's-
catch a
that's
little
fine.
bit of that.
Whatever works.
Uh,
Okay.
We can do to accommodate.
Right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
let's
so-
do 7, because
yeah.
I'd like to catch the
Okay.
beginning of it. They've got, yeah, just
Yeah, it sounds like
put
some-
together a beautiful presentation
Yeah.
at the beginning, so I'd like to see it.
Me too.
All right, we'll move it to
If
the
that was
end.
the first 8th grade graduating class, I'd like to see it too.
We,
There you go.
How many years ago, right?
we shoved the sign ordinance issue over to
So-
planning and zoning.
Yes.
And
Right,
can I
so,
present on that on the next hearing?
Please, I just want to move it
Yes.
forward.
yeah, because that's
For the
whenever
fall,
we,
and we have
that's right.
more excitement over signs that started. to
Yeah,
already.
well, that's
Yeah, so
right.
if I can speak to that on June 18th,
That would be great, so we can move that forward, and then I think everything else is done but the leash law. And yeah, the tax programs are phenomenal. Actually, that first one that just is based on income was a state program that was on our website. I guess 180 some odd people have taken advantage of it, which is great. So we just have to get that word out there. And it's a sliding scale, so there's some more, it's a larger tax credit depending upon your income level than we were even, I think, talking about. I mean, it goes, from a lower to a higher, and plus veterans, disabled. We have several, so that's great. So we moved on with that. Any other special committees, Matt?
Yeah, I have a question though, Jeff.
Yes.
And I don't care which way it goes for a leash law, but I do have one question. If we do enact a leash law and it's not like enacted, in other words, nobody's policing it or, giving citations for people who are walking their dogs without being leashed, does that increase our liability as a town?
No, because there's two answers to your question. One is, it doesn't prevent you from enforcing it because there's no such thing as estoppel against a municipality, so you don't waive an ordinance or a regulation by not enforcing it. In terms of increasing liability, that's a good question. It comes up in a whole variety of scenarios. With respect to leash law, the answer is no. I mean, there are certain regulations that if you enact and don't enforce, like shoveling snow on sidewalks, there's liability, but there's no common law or statutory law in Connecticut that says if a municipality enacts a leash law and doesn't enforce it, it has liability for various incidents that may happen with animals.
Okay, I was just wondering. Thank you.
Okay. All right, so moving on to counselor communications.
I have one.
Yes, sir.
Berlin High School baseball team will play in the Class L state championship Friday or Saturday.
Nice.
They won tonight and beat a good team from Notre Dame, West Haven.
Oh, wow.
So,
Great. Good news, as always. Anything else? Comments? No? Yes.
I
Yes.
have one thing. One of the things that we do, or we should do as a council and as mayor, is to weigh comments and including derogatory comments. And I had read something in the Citizen about a comment that was made at a Board of Finance meeting, and I also heard that the comment was made a little bit, you redacted some of the, an adjective of the comment. So I really think that when we make such derogatory comments at public meetings about other individuals, it really casts not a very good light for those of us sitting on this council. And it really shouldn't be done, and we should not use derogatory words to describe individuals.
Here, that goes without saying. Other members of other groups shouldn't do the same thing on Facebook and other places too. So I don't disagree with that. There's been quite a lot of that going around. That's for certain. Doesn't excuse anything, but I guess it was my comment, so I have no problem owning up to it. But when the Board of Finance, they're doing it again tonight, with the chairman, when they get involved in something like school security, which was about a year and a half out of my life that I worked with very hard with the Board of Ed on, to try and cut funding, which would have impacted the safety of our schools, with no basis whatsoever, in a meeting that they knew nothing about what the plan was. I was quite disturbed by that, as I would imagine most people in town would have heard the comments by one of the Board of Finance members. So, yeah, I was very upset by that. No doubt about it. So that's the other side of the story that I guess somehow got lost. And, comes to the safety of our town and our children, yeah, I get angry when someone gets involved in something that they shouldn't be. And it's much like tonight. I mean, we'll just continue with the Board of Finance because, they've done this before. There's a process in the town to fund projects. This occurred their first year where they came in with some funding that they wanted for the Board of Ed cages for sports equipment. So off the top of their heads, they came up with $10,000 that they needed. No estimates, no contracts, no, not anything, which is dereliction of duty as far as I'm concerned right there. And then later, a couple meetings later, it was already now it was $18,000 for this project that the superintendent knew nothing about, nor did the Board of Ed. So tonight, we have the chairman coming here for grinding some stumps in town. There's a procedure for that. Obviously, we have a Public Works Department. If people have complained, then we need to get out and we need to get an estimate, and we have to do it through the experts, not the Board of Finance, are not the tree stump experts. They're not the cage experts for sports equipment. That's not how funding works through the town government. So I do wish that the Board of Finance would follow what the charter tells them their job is, as the council does try and follow what our job is. So nothing disturbs me more that public elected officials like us, we're held to a standard, and I think we all should be held to the same standard. But that's just my comment on that. There's a procedure for a reason. So we have a legitimate estimate, and we can show the taxpayers that we did our due diligence before we pick a figure off the top of our heads. That's not how anything's done in the time that I've been here. So, and I'm sure it wasn't done before that, and it shouldn't be done after any of us are here. So anyway, enough said on that. Any other counselor comments?
Yeah, I'd like to just mention the dedication of the Esther Woodruff Garden.
Oh,
that
yeah, it
the
was great.
3 of us here attended on Saturday. It was a gorgeous day, but it was a beautiful event. Just, as long as I've lived here, I continue to learn so much about the history of this town. But the garden was gorgeous. All the speakers were incredibly informative. It was just a really delightful afternoon, and I would suggest anybody, if you have the opportunity to go and see this garden and take some time there. It's
pretty.
Yeah, it's just absolutely lovely. And they renovated one of the rooms. Oh, what's the name of the house? Is it just the Woodruff House?
The Woodruff House, yeah.
The Woodruff House.
Did you go inside, you guys?
Yes,
Yeah.
it was great.
Very
pretty cool.
Yeah, it's very cool. But they did some renovations in there that restored it to its original, architecture, its character. But anyway, it was a lovely event, and they did an absolutely beautiful job.
They did, and they had some great thoughts on what a great piece of property.
It's beautiful.
With that hill, like doing some kind of concerts there. We were
Yeah,
kind
it was
of
just
talking about that, and
Really, really nice.
it's great if they can utilize that property for town events. So
And I would also encourage anybody who's watching or listening.
Please.
That they're running
before they fall asleep.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
You're running a capital
that they're
campaign.
running a capital funding campaign for
Yes,
the
good
Worthington
point.
House, which I would love to see become realized someday.
Yeah, it was great.
Renovation of that.
It really was.
So
That would be great. Anybody else? Okay, we'll move on to let's do the acceptance of minutes, and then we'll just go into our executive session. Really.
Yeah, actually, we have 4. We got 4 packets in front of us, so.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to accept the 6:45, May 16th special town council meeting minutes.
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I'll make a motion to accept the May 16th, 8 o'clock special town council meeting minutes.
second.
Thank you. Any questions, comments? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
I'll make a motion to accept the May 21st, 6:45 PM special town council meeting minutes.
Second.
Thank you. Further comments? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
And
Opposed? Motion
lastly, I'll make a motion to accept the May 21st, 7 PM special town council meeting minutes.
Second.
Okay, thank you. Any comments? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. All right, thank you. Motion to move into executive session at 9, I guess, 02.
I make a motion to move into executive session for personnel matters regarding the interim town manager.
Yeah, and we can invite in, just for this portion, Denise and Attorney D'Onofrio. We'll come back, out.
Yeah.
Okay.